Okay, so my first question is, do you have any ongoing training?
Yes, we do. The four of us who work in the southern half of the country, which starts at about Turangi in the North Island and goes south from there, because half the New Zealand population south of there and half of their north. So the four of us try and get together once a fortnight for a face-to-face meeting. We also go to conferences and things like that. In fact, I've got a legal obligation to do what's called CME, which stands for Continuing Medical Education, and I have to score a set number of brownie points a year in order to keep up my registration.
Is there any differences to what your job is that you see on TV? It's like, do you do everything the same that you see on TV, or is some of it different? Like, is what you wear different?
My family won't let me watch most of the TV things because it's bad for my blood pressure. Most of it is really different. We were talking before when we were in the mortuary about personal protective equipment. Some of the stuff you see on TV gives me the heebie-jeebies because you would never sensibly go into a mortuary dressed like that. And you know, the sort of touching policemen swanning in and out stuff, no, we won't have any of that. The actual dissection, very little of that gets shown on TV anyway. The identification of bodies and showing bodies to families is much more humane how it's done here to what you see on TV. You know, they pull out the drawer in the mortuary in America, and
Yes, is this them?
that's not the way it works. One of the reasons we came over here is we've got a lady in there today with a family who are a bit difficult, and so we've got two sets of viewing rooms. We were actually going to sit in one of them because it's a really nice sitting room that fits. So if you're going to be seen as a body, you're on one of our trolleys with a beautiful shroud thing around it, and you come out to the sitting room and people can sit around with the body. So that's something that New Zealanders think is really important. A lot of groups in the community want to be with the body, and that's perfectly okay. And they want to be able to touch the body, talk to the body, all that sort of stuff. So that's one of the things we do that you just don't see any of in the TV programs. The other thing that CSI and programs like that is so different is, you know, got these wonderful black boxes that give you all the answers and the ad breaks. We want one of those. So things like toxicology results often take weeks to come through rather than, you know, 5 minutes. And, you know, DNA on a difficult case doesn't come through in 5 minutes, it takes 6 weeks. So all that sort of stuff is really different in practical terms. Some of the English programs, I'm trying to think, some of them are pretty good, but you know, we're not nearly as handsome as the people in the TV, and we don't get up to mischief in the broom cupboards either. So that's probably the biggest differences.
So how long overall does it take you to determine, like, how the person died, so plus getting all the toxicology results?
It depends a bit. So that of the 300 or so cases I'll do this year, about half of those will be people who've got eminently natural disease but have died suddenly and unexpectedly. So we call those routine cases. For those, as we said before, the actual operating bit's about an hour's worth of work. It's probably another hour's worth of work to get the report together, to look at the microscope slides and pull the whole thing together. It's usually, there's about a 5 day or so delay between us doing the PM and getting the microscope slides, because we can't strong arm the system to say, hey, you need to provide our work first, because we're not going to change anybody's clinical outcome. So the biopsies and all those things, operation things, are getting done before our histology stuff gets done, and that's fine. So my turnaround time for the straightforward cases, depending on how things are going, we hope to get about sort of 2 or 3 weeks to get a report out. But this is a job that is chaotic in the proper sense of the word. When I get up in the morning, I don't know what's going to happen today until 7 o'clock at the earliest. So you might have no cases, and that's, I go, sweet, got an office day, I can get on with getting reports done. Or this week I'm on call. I'm on the on-call forensic pathologist, so that means from Turangi to Invercargill this weekend, if there's a homicide, I'm the person involved. So I get a lot of air points
I was going to
flying
say,
around
you
the
have
country at
both of
short
them.
notice at very expensive airfares. Yeah. So I'm a Gold Elite Air New Zealand member,
Right, yeah.
entirely generated out of domestic flying, which is but what brought the list along. So the first 6 months of this year, we've had quite interesting to see the spread of what we do. So we said about 150 cases a year routine. The other 150 spread through. So up to we're nearly at 6 months now. So I've done 154 so far, and of those we had 17 suspicious deaths or homicides in Invercargill, Dunedin, Oamaru, Timaru, Christchurch, North Canterbury, Motueka, Wellington, Palmerston North, Hastings and New Plymouth. That's the spread that we've done. So in the country we've divided it into half. So there's officially 4 of us look after the southern half of the country. So I'm here in Christchurch, Amy Spark, my colleagues in Wellington, Kate White, my colleagues in Palmerston North, and we're one short at the moment because we had 2 people move off to other places. The bad news is that Kate fell off her horse at the hunt 2 weeks ago and broke her arm.
Oh, dear.
So we're down to 2, and last week Amy had to go back to a court case in Perth where she was working, so we were down to 1. Fortunately, and this is the thing that keeps us going, it was quiet. You just
If it
don't
could
know
have
from
been
day to
equally
day what it's
chaotic.
going to be, so it's chaotic and you don't know what's going to happen. So basically there's about 3 suspicious deaths a month, as well as that 18 road crashes and 4 air crash victims. 25 suicides, and this is the thing people don't realise, that overall in Christchurch there are something like 65 suicides a year. And everybody's aware of the sort of youth suicide thing because it gets a whole lot of airtime. But, and tragic as they are, they're actually a relatively small proportion. So most of them are blokes in the 25 to 40 age group, or people over 60.
Right.
So there's if talking about graphs, you've got a bimodal graph, right? And the biggest group is men in the 25 to 40 age group who've got a mixture of relationship problems, booze and business problems, often all interacting, plus background history of psychiatric issues. Quite different to the North American setup. I've seen 4 gunshot wound related deaths this 6 months. If I was working in the States, I'd probably have seen 74.
Oh my god.
I worked in, went and did a sabbatical job in Dallas for a while, Texas. And as my American colleagues come out here, say, "You guys have got to get guns. It's so much easier than what you have." So, because there's no handguns to speak of in New Zealand, that's what makes the big difference. There's any number of rifles and shotguns available, but the New Zealand attitude is such that not many people actually get shot with them. We have accidental shootings, we have suicidal shootings, but homicidal shootings are uncommon. And the biggest difference between here and the States is the availability of handguns and a community mindset that goes with it. This has been really interesting, the shooting that's happened in the church in South Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Tragic. We lived in North Carolina for 2 years, and fascinating place. But the big difference, if you look at places like Switzerland, in Switzerland a lot of blokes in the 18 to 40 age group are part of the army, so lots and lots and lots of households have military automatic weapons at home with ammunition. But I think in the last 70 years they've had 1 mass shooting. So what's the difference? The weapons are available, so where are things different? It's a community
mindset,
mindset.
isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a bit like the driving thing, people joke about it's the nut behind the wheel that's the biggest problem in cars. So that's probably one of the biggest differences between here and what you see on TV. And our rate of gunshot things is much the same as Europe and the UK. for the same reasons that partly it's a community mindset and partly it's there are no handguns.
Right. So, because of your job, how many inquests would you attend?
As well as inquests, I go to High Court for murder trials and things as well. And I used to say that on average I spent half a day a week at court. That's changed a wee bit in the last 5 years because for the criminal ones there used to be a two-step thing. There was what was called a depositions hearing and then there was a trial. So they've scrapped depositions hearings, which most expert witnesses have gone, hallelujah. Because what used to happen is you'd had to fly to Invercargill for the DEPS hearing. They'd read your evidence, no questions, thank you, you can go home. So you've spent a whole day going there really for no good purpose. So that's gone, and also one of the really interesting things that's happened is that in the last 5 years we've had more guilty pleas than we used to get. And that's to do with the minimum sentencing issues. So the real ratbags who know they're going to get convicted anyway say, well, if I plead guilty I might get 4 years off what I'm going to spend in jail. Whereas before there was no motivation for doing everything other than fighting for the very last minute.
Yeah.
So now it's probably dropped to, on average, half a day, a fortnight rather than a week. And also, as well as the work that I do some defence advice stuff too. So that if one of my colleagues is involved in a case in Auckland or whatever, the defence lawyers will ring me up and say, hey, we want some commentary to guide us through the evidence that your colleagues provided. So I do a bit of that as well.
Do you have to go, or can you do
Yeah,
that?
sometimes you do, yeah. So you write an opinion and answer a whole lot of questions to and fro, usually by email or by phone. And sometimes you appear in person as well.
How you've got enough hours in the day?
Well, nor do I sometimes.